And then he set out in pursuit, not as an exile, but as a weapon of vengeance. A barbed arrow shot from a bow, never to return. Welcome to Legends, a series that delves into the lore within Horizon Zero Dawn, a world with an abundance of powerful and moving history begging to be explored. Today, we examine the mysteries behind one of the most tragic moments in Nora history, and more personally, the past of Aloy's surrogate father, Rost. Though the events that follow are only told to us secondhand, with many details lost to time, we will attempt to find cause and reason in this tale of seemingly needless pain and horror. As it's told, before the Red Raids, before the derangement, Rost lived in the small village of Mother's Vigil, near the Karja border, with his wife and 6-year-old daughter, Alana. One day, with no warning, the village was beset upon by 12 murderous Outlanders whose actions would tear Rost's life asunder. They murdered Rost's beloved wife as she tried to fight the invaders, and took his daughter captive, along with a number of other villagers, to keep as hostages as they would attempt to go deeper into the sacred land. After this atrocity, the Outlanders made their way south, towards the Nora heartland to Devil's Thirst, a great ruin of the Old Ones. Whether aware of this or not, this was a place the Braves could not follow. This because to the Nora, to enter a place of the metal world is taboo, forbidden, potentially being shunned as an outcast and exiled from the tribe. Rost, along with fellow Nora Braves, attempted to close ground and stage rescues, but every time they came within bowshot, the Outlanders would kill a hostage. This made any real attempt to free those taken prisoner virtually impossible. This also made simply observing the Outlanders problematic, only able to gather limited information. Once arriving, they camped beyond Devil's Thirst for 2 days for reasons that remain unknown. Then, as suddenly as they came, they made their way north to the border between the Sacred Land and the Sundom. It was there that the cruelest blow was dealt. Upon their crossing, 6 hostages remained alive, Alana being among them. Even though they had successfully made their escape, in an act of sheer cruelty, they slit the throats of their captives. They left the bodies just across the border, knowing the Nora would be unable to retrieve their dead, not able to set foot outside their sacred land. The Outlanders left, thinking they were safe from vengeance. They were wrong. Though wrought with grief, Rost returned to the Embrace to seek out the matriarchs of the tribe with but one request, a secret and most terrible request, to be made a death seeker, one who dies to go seeking, and in seeking brings death to others. Thus the matriarchs performed the dark rite, dragging his spirit from his body to remain with Allmother. He then crossed the border, retrieving the bodies of the slain and returned them. Once done, he was no longer a man of the tribe, but a weapon of swift reckoning, a barbed arrow shot from a bow, never to return. And so, he set out to find those who had slain his family, and death followed with him. To the ends of the known world and beyond, he tracked his prey, to Meridian, the Claim, Utaru lands, and even into the Forbidden West. One by one he found them, and one by one they perished. The last of them nearly spelled Rost's doom, but in the end, it ended the same as all the rest. A full year later, nearly dead, Rost dragged himself all the way back to the border of his homeland. Resolved to die, he wished to do so as close to All-Mother as the laws of the tribe would allow. As death closed in, a hunting party stumbled across his broken body. By law, they should have let him die where he lay, but this would not be his end. One of the hunters broke taboo and drug him into the sacred land. She too had lost much to these Outlanders, a mate and 2 sons. In Nora lands once more, the matriarchs were left in a precarious position. Both they as well as Rost had never expected him to return to the Embrace. Having no place in the tribe, but in weighing his deeds, a compromise was made. Rost would live the rest of his life in solitude as an outcast, but an outcast within the Embrace. Though perhaps a callous verdict to some, Rost was tremendously grateful, happily accepting the terms. Only when the matriarchs came to Rost with an infant girl of mysterious motherless birth did his life find new purpose. That, however, is a different story. Though justice was brought upon them, these Outlanders and their purpose within the sacred land was never uncovered. Thus, with the limited information we have, let us retrace their steps and try to piece together what was truly at work all those many years ago. The first piece of this story that I find worthy of note is that Rost traveled far and wide to track down those who had caused him such agony. In my mind, this rules out the possibility of these Outlanders all belonging to a singular tribe. Even those notoriously brutal as the cannibalistic Tenakth could not be entirely to blame for what happened. It seems more likely that these Outlanders were part of either a bandit clan, or even more likely, each hired hands brought together to engage in a singular mission, then going their separate ways once the job was done. As they crossed the border and came upon Mother's Vigil, it seems either one of two things occurred. One, they had always intended on taking hostages to ensure their passage deeper into the sacred land, or two, they had intended to make their way to Devil's Thirst undetected, but things went sideways, forcing them to either turn back or take prisoners to ensure the success of their task. Regardless, hostages were taken, and they succeeded in making their way to the ruins of the Metal World. They then camped beyond the ruins for 2 nights, and as previously mentioned, reports of strange noises were heard, but that's all. This is where the root of our mystery lies. What was their purpose in going to Devil's Thirst? The only location they remained for any extended duration of time, and the final stop in their journey before making their way back to the Karja border. It seems evident to me that they were looking for something specific. If they had wanted to dive into just any ruin, they could have taken the straight shot towards Devil's Grief and spared themselves the trouble of having to make their way past the fortress of Mother's Crown. But what exactly did they come to find? And how did they know where to find it? Both a positive and a negative for those attempting to delve into the ruins of the sacred land is that, due to Nora belief, these ruins of the Metal World more often than not are ostensibly untouched. Positive in the sense that fresh finds are plentiful, negative in this case because no previous knowledge would be known as to the contents within the ruins themselves. I went back to the ruins of Devil's Thirst, combing through the twisted metal and undergrowth for something to point me in the direction of their hidden motives. Regrettably, I found nothing of the sort. Then I took a step back to recall exactly what High Matriarch Tirsa said in reference to the location of their camp. She stated, "We know they camped beyond Devil's Thirst for 2 days. There were reports of strange noises." If we make the assumption that the Nora Braves were tracking the Outlanders from behind as they embarked from Mother's Vigil, then perhaps the phrase "beyond Devil's Thirst" would indicate they made their camp south of the ruin. In that case, there's only one ruin of the old world just south of Devil's Thirst, that being the bunker that houses the Ultra Weave MK7.1, later adapted by Aloy to create the Shield Weaver armor. To those who would know where to find it, this ancient piece of tech could have drastically shifted power dynamics for whoever claimed it, making the wearer virtually invincible to all who opposed them. Being so nondescript, these strange noises could have been caused by any number of actions. Being that the Nora are wary of most technology, even of their contemporaries, these sounds could perhaps have been made by some kind of machinery or explosive. Upon examining the bunker once again, but under this new pretense, the first door leading to the holding chamber looks as if it may have been blasted open. Perhaps either the Outlanders were unable to gain entry into the inner chamber, or exhausted their available resources blasting through the first door. Regardless, if they had been after the Ultra Weave, they apparently left empty-handed. This may explain their sudden departure back to the Sundom's border, deciding to cut their losses and escape with their lives. No longer having need for their hostages, they chose execution over release and departed their separate ways, simply counting the whole incident as a job gone wrong. Obviously, this line of reasoning is only speculation, being that so little was actually able to be uncovered by the Braves tracking the Outlanders at the time, as well as Rost taking most of the first-hand knowledge of what happened to his grave. This, however, only makes me feel there is something even deeper at work within this story. Someone who brought these miscreants together to claim this prize forgotten to the ages. One who must have a great knowledge of the Old Ones and their secrets. One whose ravenous ambition trumps all else. One who is proven to manipulate, steal, and incite the bloodshed of innocents with no time for remorse or regret. Most likely, their identity will be forever lost to history. Or perhaps, the answers to these mysteries are closer than any of us ever realized. And with that, our journey comes to an end. If you'd like to see more content like this, likes and shares are always appreciated. And if you really like what we're doing at the channel, come join our community and hit that subscribe button. The topic for today's video came from one of you, our awesome subscribers. So if you have any ideas for our next episode of Legends, let us know in the comments down below. And until next time, thanks for watching and keep questing.